as usual, I'm kind of interested in playing the event. I talked about this before, the fact-finding. I like the Arvin being able to grab a lot of bonus somehow. So this says 2 U.S. pieces from out of play to South Vietnam, or transfer a die roll from patronage to Arvin aid to Arvin resources, aid plus 6. That's neat. I definitely don't want to transfer a die roll from patronage to Arvin resources, but that's not entirely clear to me. Removes, okay, fact-finding, 2 U.S. pieces, or transfer a die roll from patronage to Arvin resources, aid plus 6. So I get the feeling the or means that I could help the U.S. with this piece, or transfer patronage to Arvin resources, which I definitely don't want to do, and I get aid plus 6. The other side is this: remove support from a coin-controlled city outside Saigon, and that's why I looked it up, because it does actually specify in the book that remove support means that you actually have to have some support there, either passive or active. What was my other option? Green Berets, because I get a shot at this as well if I want. This one I'm a lot less interested in. What I'm interested in here, I think, is playing the event, but playing the duped event. Pissing the U.S. off here, though. Which is remove support from a coin-controlled city outside Saigon, get patronage plus 4. Well, there are a number of such towns. I want to go for kind of the weakest one. I'm going to take this one. That drops a point of support from the U.S., who I am kind of worried about. And I get 4 patronage, which boosts me up to the 49. And now the patronage levels are quite high. And now the U.S. has the next option. They're going to pass and take 3 Arvin resources because they're interested in the Green Beret and not as interested. They get the nice full operation on this one, which I'm handing off anyway. But I'm very interested in the Green Beret. Place 3 irregulars or 3 rangers in a province without NVA support. Set it to active, without NVA control. Set it to active support. That's a very rich way to boost a province. Do I have one that I particularly like? It's without NVA control. So that could be Quang Tin, Quang Nagai over here, or it could be actually down here at Tay Ninh. There are provinces that are 2-point provinces that I can swing this way and get them into my all the way from opposition up to active support. So that's very potent, and that's what I'm looking at. At this point, I believe I'm going to be looking for an NVA action to help them. They kind of didn't do very well in the first year of the game, the 64 year. We're officially in 65 by sort of the rules as far as I'm concerned. The first year, the monsoon's done. Even though the cards say 64, this is just because that first coup, the coups are embedded in a particular year phase. It still creates a decent sequence as far as I'm concerned. So I've got to try to build up, I think, so that I can get an NVA force on the board. My income is just too low. Well, my resources are too low. My income's too low. I got to work towards getting those bases back that the U.S. destroyed for me. So the NVA is going to have to do a rally action. And then we have a secondary action there, which we're going to do an infiltrate with. But I think we want to do the rally first because we can increase the trail with that. We're going to be basically shooting our wad here, which sucks. Maybe passing makes more sense, except next turn we won't get a turn. So we might as well do something now. But one of the problems is the NVA doesn't have a way to make income off any of their abilities. And all of their things except the special activities cost. Okay, so this is going to cost me 1 resource per space plus 2 to improve the trail. And what it's going to allow me to do is 1 NVA guerrilla or replace 2 with an NVA base. If there's a base, though, I can place guerrillas up to the trail value plus NVA bases. Then, and this is, I think, a totally separate thing, if desired, I can pay 2 resources to improve the trail. Okay. I'm going to spend a resource to do North Vietnam. And I will get, see, I gotta look at this rally, because where's the then? Is that after the whole rally action? Or is that on a per space basis? Okay, so this is rally. This is not a special activity. It's a regular operation. In each selected space, the executing phase is if NVA. Okay, then the NVA can spend after the per. So that's important. So, okay. So I have to save a couple for the trail here. And I'm going to get what? I'm going to get... guerrillas equal to the trail plus bases. That gets me 2, which is better than I would get if I just activated it. Okay. Bases in North Vietnam don't do me a lot of good. They may add to my total score, however. I want to spend another one down here, and I'm going to turn 2 of these into a base. That gets me another victory point. Then I spend 2 to upgrade the trail by a point. Using that, this red part is not within the per space thing. So I've spent all my money so far. Now I get to infiltrate, though, and I get to pick 1 or 2 spaces with an NVA base or NVA is greater than VC. Well, my bases are in places where NVA is greater than VC, so I can do this anyway. If there's a base, place NVA troops up to the trail plus bases. And if desired, replace NVA guerrillas with troops. Well, I kind of like my guerrillas better. I'm just trying to get some troops on the board for no good reason. So what is it? Trail plus bases. I'll get 3 in here. And I'm only allowed to do 2 of these. And then I'll do my other one up here. Trail plus bases gets me 3 more troops. Troops are kind of useful for the bombard action. Because I have to have 3 NVA troops together to do that, and that's what I'm getting in both these cases. And that'll allow me to maybe blow up some things in the nearby areas. But one thing to keep in mind, the NVA at the beginning of the war did not have a tremendous presence. This is not an anomalous situation to have them so weak at this point. It is perfectly reasonable. It does kind of put them in a position, though, where they don't have an early win option. But they have very low victory conditions. If they can get a lot of power and controlled areas, I don't know how likely that is, they're going to be able to win the game, and that's something that other people have to kind of keep in mind. Of course, everybody else is much closer to their win conditions, so we can pretty much allow the NVA. You don't want to give them a free hand, but there's this feeling that you can allow them to grow a little bit. Well, but they're dangerous, I'm sure. We move this here. The Green Berets come here. This pops out. And we get Ambassador Taylor. So this is another... So this is an option that the U.S. probably isn't going to get if it's good for the ARVN. Interventionists aid in ARVN resources, each up by 9. Up to 2 U.S. pieces from out of play to South Vietnam, or if desired, patronage -3. ARVN probably is interested in the event. The question is always, can you do more with your action, or is the event more exciting? I always love the events, so I want to play them, which is kind of My wife does that in a lot of the CDGs. She plays the events because they seem just so much more exciting. It's because it's kind of hard to get a grasp in this game for me on just how much value I can get off of doing my normal actions until I get into a pattern, and then it's like, they are hard choices. But one thing I mentioned to our styles over on the Game Box is that, I think the balance of power consideration and the general balance of the cards, if the event looks good to you, it probably is about equivalent or maybe a little better than what you can do with your operations. You're not going to get too screwed by doing that. And here's the other side of it. The balance of power means that if you make a tiny mistake, it's not that big a deal because players are going to be hitting whoever's in the lead. So the only really important thing is to stay sort of in the game, whatever that means. Now, right now, NVA is not in the game, but they should be able to make that there. The other option of this is Saigon seen as U.S. puppet. Remove support from 3 spaces outside Saigon. Patronage down 3. Well, that's clearly an insurgent side of things, and very unlikely to happen. Given that Arvin is sitting here, they're not going to allow that as an option, whether or not they take the event. They may take the limited op only, but the special ability is nice, so it's really hard to make that decision. It's so much easier to take the event and give somebody else full operations. I don't know. Okay, and I guess we're up on the Green Berets card. U.S. fires off the Ambassador Taylor effect. Now they have the choice to bring 2 more pieces into South Vietnam, which would be really useful, especially putting bases or even troops. But I'm too worried about the Arvin patronage, so I'm going to drop that by 3. And otherwise, I increased both resources and aid rather heavily with this. Basically, Arvin and the U.S. are fighting against each other. Oh, son of a bitch. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know if I just drew that off here or here. Must have taken it off the top. So this is back up 3. This is back 9. This is back 9. So my option is whether I want to take the event for Green Berets. I really want that, but I can't stop Arvin from using them. I can't hurt their value on that. So I need to trigger this or prevent the event. 3 irregulars or 3 rangers in a province without NVA. I don't really need to bring the rangers in or the irregulars in. Setting it to active support is valuable though. However, I'm really worried about coin here. About the damn Arvin. This is what's wrong about walking away from the table, because I've got 2 events. This one looks like my draw pile, sort of. This looks like a discard pile. It gets me confused, just not being used to the system too well. Even though I've played it a decent amount. It's not like, it's not like sort of more common systems. CDGs I've played a decent amount of, a very decent amount. And then if you go to traditional area, hex games, whatever, a lot of them, but the little card mechanism in this, 4 or 5 playings, you'd think it would sink in, but it hasn't. I don't know. I gotta think. I need to cut into Arvin, there's no question. So what I'm gonna do is just a train operation here. This is not a limited ops, but it's ops only, no special. And that prevents these guys from getting a very strong position on their neck. So they might pass, because they get second shot on this card, because the U.S. has already gone. This is going to be build local forces, cities or province. 3 Arvin resources per space. I get to place irregulars. If there's a U.S. base, they can be rangers or Arvin cubes. Whichever I want. It doesn't really matter. Up to 1 coin-controlled train space. space that I did the training, I can pay to pacify, or better yet, I can do it in Saigon and drop the patronage into Arvin Resources. And that's what I feel like I have to do, because Arvin's been pulling too hard on feathering their own nest there. So we're definitely going to do a training here. That's going to cost us 3 Arvin Resources. And I'll figure out the rest of it offline. After Arvin takes the event here and pumps the values up and throws a couple new US bases, I don't know which one of these two, I think this one and this one down here, onto play. That leaves the VC with the option of a big event, big action. But they don't want that because they really want Korean War arms. That's going to allow them to get a VC piece in each of 3 spaces, and then they could also take an extra buck in passing this turn. So that looks appealing to them. However, they turn to the NVA and say, well, what the hell are you going to do? If I pass, you have no points. You can't do a major operation. The best you're going to get is your special activity here, which could be a bombard or something like that, where you could do some damage, and that's cool. But how about you do the Korean War arms, because the 2 people at the top won't be available, and then I'll do, then I can, if you do that, I can do something useful in my turn. And right now the NVA is not seeing anything that they're terribly happy about the VC doing. The VC would like to probably build up their forces. They don't really have enough troops on the board to do much. Now, what if they did a rally? That'll cost them a resource per space. But the bonus of this thing is it's going to allow them to throw 3 bases down. And that's really potent. And they got places where they want 2 here at least. This one's a little iffier, or here, just because they'll be a little bit more exposed. But I think their own income comes based on their bases, doesn't it? I don't know. Yeah, their income is based on the number of bases. So if they get a lot of bases out there, they're going to have the ability to do more later. So they're very positive towards that. And it also isn't necessarily moving their marker forward right now. It'll move it forward a little later, but it makes them look a little less like a bunny, less in the lead. Hop, hop, hop. But yeah, I don't see anything that they're able to really convince. Now, what does the NVA want? The NVA wants NVA control. Possibly an attack would convince them, or an ambush, which can be done with marcher attack. The problem is I just don't have that much stuff. So what I really want to do is rally. And in a sense, rallying is good for both sides, because the VC can infiltrate into, or the NVA can infiltrate into VC units, perhaps. However, the NVA isn't buying any part of it, so both of them are going to pass. Dropping us to this, and what do we get? These come back, US comes back, this goes in here, and our new card is the Brinks Hotel. And we're pretty sure the VC's not going to want that. NLF Terror reconciles GVN US. Aid plus 10, wow. Or 4 patronage to Arvin. Well, we can see they're going to be screwing with that shit. Flip any current RVN leader card. Its text is ignored. Well, I can't do that. I mean, I guess I could ignore this, but it doesn't have any real effect. So, and I can't flip that without flipping the whole board. If I had to do that, that would suck, because I like him. For The next option, U.S. billet car bomb, shift a city that has VC by 2 levels towards active opposition and add a terror marker there. That's powerful. I would love to be able to do that, but the VC is not going to get a chance to move because they're planning on using these Korean War arms unless they can convince the NVA to do that, and they'll pass again. Which might be a little difficult. Much more likely to see happen is the VC take their action, the NVA pass, and the US gets a second action if they want. Or that would leave NVA up here, which we can guess that the ARVN may well want to boost their aid and resources, get their cash on the table, because that's something important for both them and for the US. Although we've got it boosted kind of high right now. Other option is 4 patronage to ARVN. Ooh, yeah, ARVN's going to want that. So the US may actually want to block that from happening. Oh well, we'll see. You see, taking those extra troops was kind of a big thing. Means the US gets to go here. Now they're willing to do this because ARVN's going to get a shot at this card before the NVA does. So we did a sweep, and we're driving into lots of areas, turning up VC guerrillas. We can only move our troops there, but we can move by road, which is pretty easy actually. Most of Vietnam has roadways available through it. You go into adjacent insurgent-free LOCs and then into adjacent spaces. I don't know if I've been cheating and just driving along the road as much as I like. How is this worded? See, it says to or along, and this says on to. I think I've been cheating. I think this one I would have been able to do from here and here. I'm not sure about all the rest. This one I was able to drive into from here. This from here, and I know I came out of here. I'm going to allow it to sit, but I think I may have cheated a little bit in terms of where the U.S. forces came from. For example, these could have come from here, so that makes, I know there were a couple there. I'm going to say I did it legally, but I think I'm only allowed to move on to one road and further. Let me take a look at how sweep is defined. You have to be really careful because the wording in these is always very precise and not obvious until you look up the rule. It's non-player rules, which this is special activity, coin operations. What are we on? Sweep. Move troops and can locate. First, move any of your troops onto selected spaces. In addition, each group of troops may first move onto an adjacent LOC and then into an adjacent space. It sounds to me like you can't drive along the roads infinitely. And that kind of corresponds nicely, actually, to the carp game again, where if you wanted to do this kind of hunting and finding, roads help a little bit, but not tremendously. But if you do the patrol operation here, which is kind of like the security operation, you can drive all along the roads as much as you like. And those kind of are analogous. Okay, anyway, we'll pretend that this was legal because I can't restore it without looking at the video and thinking real hard about it. We're going to cheat every now and then here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is airstrikes. I'm able to hit up to 6 pieces because it's not a monsoon. Troops, guerrillas, and then bases. But each space that I hit is going to shift 1 towards active opposition. But here's the thing. Many of the places that I moved to, I think all of them, have active opposition double anyway. So I'm not going to hurt myself here. So I could kill 3 units here. Now that's half my airstrike power. It's free fire zone time, right? So we're going to kill these 2 pieces. That's 2 of our airstrikes. And I'll just put this here. I got 4 more coming. I could kill this, but I don't think that's particularly valuable. I think I'm more interested in... Here is not very valuable because I'm not going to be able to get a base because it's tunneled. I stayed out of these areas because the opposition's not strong enough. I think these VC up here are kind of annoying. So I think I want to hit them. So that takes me to 5 of these. I hit them twice. That takes me to 5. I've got 1 more. Do I just want to knock out their presence down here? That seems at least as valuable as, you know, weakening a place where they have one of a base present. But I've also kind of exposed them. And that's problematic because now the VC might want to do something to hide. So, you know, not only am I getting a lot of good effect off this, but I'm also forcing them to kind of react. That's the 2 actions over here. We slid in here. There goes the Brinks Hotel. That'll be available next. Now, Arvin has to kind of select something that doesn't allow the event to be played there. Uh-oh, it's Gulf of Tonkin. Now, luckily for me, the U.S. comes first. Incident and resolution. U.S. free airstrikes. Well, airstrikes are usually free. Accompanying op. What's that? I don't know. Oh, it can be done with anything. Yeah. So that has no cost, so that's kind of cool. Now, with the sweep, was there anything else I could do? For U.S. group. Oh, shit. I cheated. Not enough people here. Jungles. I'm not allowed to... I'm only allowed to turn over 1 per 2 in the jungle. If I had a... Let's see. Then I'd activate 1 guerrilla per U.S. trooper irregular there. 1 per 2 in the jungle. Okay. So... Let's take a look at this. U.S. free airstrikes and then moves 6 U.S. air pieces from out of play to any cities. That's kind of nice. These guys are free, essentially, so I can throw them into play. And then withdraw them if need be. Congressional regrets. Aid -1 per casualty. All casualties fall out of play. Wow, that would be a painful thing to allow to happen. Good thing the U.S. is primed here, as long as nothing terrible happens, and I don't think anything can, given the events that are in play. One thing about this game, the thing that causes me the AP, is this absolutely exquisitely painful choice that you're given on every single action. You're given the choice between the card here, the next card, your selection of activities here. And I'm finding this one at least, and I found this with Andean Abyss too, but maybe not as much with A Distant Pain. I'm finding this one really puts the screws in. Maybe it's just a lack of familiarity, but in A Distant Plane, I felt like I was almost regularly able to make that decision very easily. Yeah, I want to pass. Yeah, I want to do, you know, a secondary event. Yeah, it's very important I do the limited op right now, or whatever. I felt like I could almost always make that decision there. Maybe it was a familiarity thing again, but this is definitely more painful. And that's what slows it down for me. There's no question of that. Not as bad opposed, but I'm still pretty damn bad at it opposed, and I feel so guilty when I'm playing this opposed because I need to really consider all the options and understand what anyone else can do. And that level of thinking comes at a pricing cost. It's taking me, you know, a few minutes each card play, no question, 5 to 10 minutes to play a card, you know, and there's 120 of them in the deck or whatever. I don't think they're all in play, right? But there's 80 cards or something. It's going to take me forever if I go at that rate, especially if I babble forever afterwards, right? But that is what is so appealing about this game, is how rich that decision-making process really is. Okay, let's go on with this. And the 2 people at the bottom have to choose. So, Arvin uses the Brinks Hotel to get themselves 4 patronage, shooting themselves up here. And this brings an interesting point to discuss what the patronage kind of means and why it makes any sense. So, that patronage isn't saying that South Vietnam is going to hold together. It's a way of rewarding the functionaries within the government for their Swiss bank accounts after the government falls, that they can run away. They're almost the criminal organization in this game, really. They come the closest to being that, although they have the troops and the police. But yeah, they're the ones who don't really give a shit if the country falls in some sense. They've got to keep it alive long enough to get their patronage high enough, but a victory in patronage probably does not mean that South Vietnam at all holds out. It just means that they've padded their pockets sufficiently and don't really care how the government holds. Another interesting factor, I was worried and I looked this up, the leader card thing, its text is ignored. There's a specific note in there about this one not being affected by this particular card. That's really sweet. That's a level of, really nailing things down in terms of the rules. I think you got to look at Mark Herman as the master of that, basically. Anyway, the NVA passes again. Why? They could have done a double thing. The thing is, they want to get their trail up. And the only way they can do that is if they have at least $3. They have to do a rally. I mean, I guess they could do a rally without doing this space, but they want to do a rally, create some troops, and raise the trail value, and get their own income running here, so that they can actually play in the game. They haven't really been able to. Now, they would have been able to do some of that, and then maybe do a bombard and do some damage coming in. But they're going to hold off one more turn because they get the number 2 action here. U.S. doesn't want Gulf of Tonkin as an event? Well, at the very least, they have to prevent it from happening. And then I can squirrel away another buck and make my actual play that lets me start getting into the game a little bit better. Right now, we're really in a position, though, where the U.S. and the coin are the two or the Arvin are the two kind of fighting with each other. They're the real problem here. They tried helping each other out. They were kind of lovey-dovey early on, right? Not so much anymore. One or the other is so close to victory that they both have to struggle to prevent someone from winning this. Now, obviously, you don't have that kind of dynamic in most Vietnam War games, but this is really interesting in this one, as is usually the case in the coin series, that you have these kind of strange bedfellows. And that puts Tonkin here. The U.S. is going to get first option. The VC is going to probably lose out on a turn. They're not going to get that every other turn thing that's the usual pattern that these games often provide. That's what happens when events or when people start, trying to trim somebody else's ability to take an action. The next one's booby traps. Preparations tip off enemy. VC and NVA ambush is max 1 space. Otherwise, it's a capability. Well, either way, it's a capability. Mines and punji. Each sweep space VC afterwards removes 1 sweeping troop on a roll of 1 to 3. Ow. Interesting thing, and that's a full capability, so it'll last for the whole game. So those are kind of attractive to take as one side or the other. The VC is probably going to get that because I think Gulf of Tonkin is going to be these two. And VC has first choice anyway on this. They probably won it. That would have been worth perhaps passing for. Okay. Last U.S. airstrikes, there's a couple of things I missed, which was they took coin control of some areas, and then also they wanted to degrade the trail, and I forgot to do that. They're not doing Gulf of Tonkin for the event. It didn't make sense. There weren't revealed units. They're doing the sweep and airstrike again. The airstrike itself doesn't do much for me. The biggie would be, I could blow up some troops. The biggie would be bringing in units. Instead, I'm withholding from doing that, and instead performing another sweep and airstrike combination, which is how I noticed that I screwed up before. The result of these sweeps and airstrikes is not all that good necessarily. They don't help our support any. We didn't knock anywhere where they actually caused more support for the VC or more opposition for the VC. But by upping the control markers that we've got, oh, I gotta count because I think I counted this only as one. The coin controlled areas plus patronage is above 50. Now that is in the victory zone, and people have to be real careful. Everybody's got to kind of start doing things against Arvin here. I should have been probably aiming at the advise action, because that's what I really want to do, to try to drive them down. They're my biggest worry. But it's so hard not to kill the enemy, the communists, you know? The idea that, like, South Vietnam as a faction wins, it's a hard one to really let me settle into my brain as a bad thing. The same way that, like, the idea of the coalition and ADP winning, and or the government forces in ADP or Andean Abyss winning, and that being a bad thing for the coalition in ADP or whatever it is. I think the U.S. actually in Andean Abyss. It's really hard to believe that you're like, or hard to accept as a player. You have to put yourself in the mindset that you're not really fighting the war that the Americans were fighting. You're really concerned about this, that there's too many areas under government control somehow. That maybe they don't owe you enough favors, that they're stealing too much money and don't owe you enough favors, or whatever. I don't know. It's a hard thing to justify when you look at it. Anyway, before I do the recounting, we had passes from both of the insurgent factions, and that puts the booby traps card up. Looks like Arvin's not going to get a shot at that card. These two are probably going to work together. Because I took this, it would only be a limited ops or an event that didn't do anything. It causes a penalty to aid for casualties and removes them from play. Well, the U.S. hasn't taken any casualties. Our next card is the coup, though. And that means we have a monsoon up here. And we should always remember to set this up here, right? This is going to be Nguyen Cao Ki, Brass Key. Pacification costs are going to be 4 resources per terror or level instead of the advantage that we've been getting before. This is really horrible. This means the next card, people have to take the Arvin down, or the U.S. has just handed them the victory. And I guess there's nothing else exciting here. We'll see if the game's over early. This is certainly one of the issues, is that, you know, when you don't really pay attention to that victory point balance as well as maybe you should, you let things get out of hand, and we're in real danger of that here. On the other hand, this one starts out more unbalanced than most of the others, with both the U.S. and the Arvin player in a closer position to victory. So it's, especially a distant plane, you really have a distance to make to your victory point schedule. I don't know, this one, there was a significant range. I think it's just that the two sides, the two coin powers kind of helped each other a little too much and didn't help themselves enough. I had no clue. My numbers were completely random. I had 31 points of coin control in place. That puts me to 47, nowhere near victory. You know, I can't handle tracks. Maybe patronage was supposed to go up and I only moved that up and forgot to move patronage. I don't know. But I gotta go with what I got, and that's this. Let me check some of the others, make sure they're okay too. The VC just do not have any good options. I'm looking through all their choices. Rally, you know, they could do that any time. That's not really something you do just before the coup, right? I can't do March and Monsoon. I would have loved to. Well, no, not really. I was counting that as a possibility. I would move on to the roads and maybe tax them. But I can only get a couple of bucks from that and subvert a couple of bucks out of the Arvin economy. Attack. Maybe I'll do this. Problem? Well, I can attack here, and I have a 1 in 6 chance of wiping them out. Here, I got a 2 in 6 chance of wiping those out. That sounds pretty good, to tell you the truth. Terror. That allows me to look. I could only do it here. I could end up incrementing the value, but that's going to cost me a resource, and I'm going to be able to do that at the end stage. I want to take an action. What about booby traps? Mines and punji. Each sweep space. You know, I'm going to take the event here just because I just don't see anything better to do. And I get these booby traps. But I get the opposite. Sweeps 1 to 3. It's going to kill a troop when they try to sweep. And hopefully I'll remember these. One problem is that these events are hard to remember, the capabilities. So like I have this one, VC rally in one space where VC already had a base may agitate as if support phase. That's not terribly valuable right now. Again, I'll be able to do that in the support phase. It's useful if I was close to winning, but I'm not. I have a lot of room to gain there. I could have exchanged a couple of these for a base, but then I have unprotected bases, or here, which doesn't seem at all wise. So I'm going to take that that opportunity, and then let's see what the VC can do. They have to take their action because otherwise it's just a waste. Everybody's going back in here at the end of the phase, at the end of the coup phase. Airstrikes again and forgot to drop the trail. Terribly thrilled with my options for the NVA either. They got the double thing. They did a rally, creating new bases. That'll get them a little bit more income. I don't want to increase the trail because it's going to increase anyway. I'm going to get some trail money if I increase it at this point. Well, maybe it's worth $2. I don't know. Let's see. The number of bases 2 times the trail value. So if I spend the $2, I get it now. On the other hand, my other options are free. So yeah, okay, I'll increase it. It doesn't. It may have an effect as to my deployment. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think I break even by doing that. But now the special activity that I get, I can take it, infiltrate, and basically put troops. Oh, I got the trail up. That makes it useful. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I can put 1 plus 2 times the trail, so I can put 3 troops in up to 2 spaces, right? NVA, if base, place NVA up to trail plus bases, so I only get 2 in each. So I'll put some in here so I don't have to move there. And actually, that's not optimal, but I'll put some in here as well. I'm not thrilled with any of this, but I can always shift some troops out of North Vietnam into those spaces during my redeployment. I thought about a bombard, but there was only one place I could do it. Well, there's 2 places I could do it. I'm legitimately allowed to bombard here and here because there's a US base in them and they were next to 3 of my troops. Other places there weren't 3 troop markers, so here there's only 2. Here there's 3 cubes, but these are police, they're not troops, same factor here. Now, if I did the bombard, I would only be able to remove troop cubes from the space. The net effect of that would be I could kill 1 US cube, which would decrease aid a little bit, but it's not going to do anything significant. I think trying to build up as much as possible is probably the best I can do. And that'll put us in this position running into the coup. And this is the end of a very short year, which probably means the next year is going to be quite long for 1965. And I don't think we're even in a 65 card. These are 64 cards here. So we haven't even made it into the 65 card. Yeah, this had to be the first, and I just peeked to make sure, the first of the cards in the 1965 deck. So I'm going to call this the rest of 64, 64 part C or whatever, just because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know what that actually means. It doesn't really make sense if I try to figure that out. Anyway, I'm going to go have a smoke or something. A couple of local lost cats out there, it sounds like. So what I'm looking at here is a little different from what I'm used to. Sabotage is line of control with more insurgents than coin pieces. Okay. Or adjacent to non-coin controlled cities. I don't remember that in any other game, but maybe I'm mistaken. But if I'm able to take control of one of the cities, it looks to me like I can strip away the value of the road that city is sitting next to. That could be a very, very important value. I've been kind of looking at it, not really seeing cities as terribly valuable, but now I see where they can be because they'll reduce the economy of South Vietnam. Anyway, continuing on with the coup card, we'll see what happens. Quick note, let me jump this back to where it was, assuming that I can do easy addition again. 16 plus 23 is 39, and I had 38 here, I think, or maybe 30, I don't know. That puts me to above 75. Now the track ends at 75 and you can't go higher than that. So there's a lot of resources available to Arvin. In part it's because of the short term, not a lot was spent. We did a lot of events for the US and Arvin. We didn't really build a lot of troops like we have been. We didn't do a lot of things that cost Arvin money. During the support phase, the US triggered 3 support payments here, here, and here, where they had troops, their Arvin control or whatever, or coin control, and their Arvin police in each case. That raised their value for support and aid up to 48, or support and available troops up to 48, if I've got the count right. I'll do a recount, but we just did one, so it should be okay, unless I can't add and subtract. Arvin refused. They chose not to increase any support anywhere. So, for example, they could have boosted points here, 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 up to a couple of points, actually. And that would have put the U.S. victory level at 50, which, there's some advantage to tilting support towards your ally in this, but there's, just like with the coin control, there's kind of this feeling of, I don't really want to protect all the areas anymore. South Vietnam's becoming too powerful for whatever reason. Likewise, the U.S. is becoming too powerful. Basically, the insurgency's failing. For the VC, they also did some and increased both of these up to active support, or active opposition. But they lost so many points off of some of the things that the U.S. dropped. So, for example, the U.S. dropped the opposition down here in the Delta area. The Delta is a hard place to survive. You don't have, what is it? This is just forest or something. This is lowland. I think here, I don't know where the difference between the two colors here, but I think these are both jungle. I can't really tell why there's a coloration difference. This one's a little different, maybe because it has no population. I don't know. And then, what we got? I don't know what these pluses are. Why are there 2 numbers? There are none here. I don't know what that's about. Okay. That puts us to the final the redeployment phase, and I get to drop some things in there, and then commitment. Come back before all that ends, and then I guess load this one up. Okay, so the U.S. actually withdrew a couple of their troop cubes, and as part of that, they had to convince ARVN to throw some troops into some areas. Not so much to maintain control, as to maintain the ability to affect those areas if things get ugly, in part. U.S. supports up to 49, actually. I just counted it. When I calculated it, it came to 50. When I counted it, it came to 49. Who the fuck knows, right? Let's count again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 27, 28, 29, 30 plus 20 is 50. So we'll say I missed one when I counted last time. Okay. And these, I'll go back here. We're pretty much here, but we have one more thing, and I've flipped over all the guerrillas and irregulars and all that. We have one more thing to do, though. Compare all of these, because now there are 2 cards in here. And one thing we have to do is consider him. Pacification is going to cost more while he's in there for getting rid of terror. Oh, or level. Oh, shit. Well, that, I think, is in play during the coup. So, I did 3 sets of 6, I believe, right? 18, 60, 75. That means they should have been sets of 8. So, I think I go down 6 more. See if that makes sense. 18 and 6 more would have been 24. Yeah, well, that's going to work. Yeah, it should be that. Okay, but now we have to look at these and see which ones are available. So this is a U.S. pivotal event, 2 or more cards in the RVN leader box. That's true now. And support plus available is greater than 40. Oh, yeah. So we got ours available. This is actually meant for a little bot thing. Another thing I haven't explained, these guys, if you got too many units in a small area, you can throw this here and dump them in there. I don't like that if I can avoid it, so even where I have kind of some crowding, that's not going to be the case. Well, what's this going to allow? Unrestricted air war. NVA removes 2 bases, resources minus 15. Ineligible through the next card. 6 casualties or 3 US out of play to available. I may not want to do that if I'm going to do things that are going to cause casualties, because I can pull them back out of the casualty box into here and maybe actually engineer a victory with that card. That's a nice withdrawal card in a sense. Cause a lot of damage and then get it. What about the Easter Offensive? 2 or more cards in the leader box and more NVA troops than US troops on the map. Maybe. 1, 4, 7, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The U.S. was very clever without knowing it. How about the Tet Offensive? 2 or more cards and 20 and greater than 20 VC guerrillas in the south. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And Vietnamization. 2 or more cards in the RVN leader box and less than 20 troops on the map. I believe there are less than 20 troops on the map, because there are only 20. There are 40 initial, and there are 20 of them available, and some of them are out of play. So I'm going to have the ability to do this mechanization, which adds resources to ARVN, adds to the aid. Ooh, I forgot to reduce aid. Aid gets, oh no, it gets reduced by US casualties, and that didn't happen. All out of play ARVN available. Place 4 ARVN cubes anywhere. I want to do this fairly soon, probably. Simply because that lets me get lots of ARVN pieces on the board and take more control and try to drive, my control of the board over the game, actually. So right now it really looks like those 2 factions are racing for the victory here. I haven't quite figured out what to do with the insurgents in this game. How to capitalize on them effectively. And Nguyen Chan Thi, First Corps Commander, 3 Arvin pieces within 3 spaces of Hugh. Shift receiving spaces, each 1 level towards active support. That's kind of nice. I'm assuming these come out of active. I'd have to look up the placing rules, but I don't think I can take them out of there. Popular General relieved. Place any 2 Arvin with 2 VC pieces within 2 spaces of Hugh. Patronage goes either +4 or -4. If we were close to a coup card, this might be the way to try to win with the Arvin, but man, I think we're better off. I don't like the idea of increasing support particularly, but and I might not do it, but this gives Arvin the first shot at an action, so they're probably not going to take this at that point. But what's the next one? Anam. North-South rivalry lingers. NVA and VC lose a resource per space with both. -1 resource each per space with both. Oh, if they're sharing territory, which they're not at this point. And patronage goes up. Ooh, yum, yum, yum. I may actually pass in order to improve patronage without bonusing that. Does this... No, this doesn't keep them eligible. If it kept Arvin eligible, I might do that to trump the original card. The other side is Saigon regime seen as colonial. Retread removed support from Hue, Da Nang, and an adjacent province. I assume that's all support. Is Da Nang up here? No. So I'm going to have to find Da Nang. Oh, Da Nang's here. I guess an adjacent province to what? Either of them? Both of them? I don't know. Did we see this one? Yeah. All right. So we're ready to march into what and I have so many dice and I don't need them for this game. But whatever the next year is, I think this is 65 that we just finished up, because the cards are supposed to come out 1 per year. We're just going to have a very long 66 as opposed to the 65, which was incredibly short. Up it goes.